Out here in the Mojave Desert, it is not uncommon for people to shed some of their clothing to stay cool and beat the heat. There is also situated in this dry oasis a place reserved for people who have at one time or another stripped to the bare necessities in the name of art. It's known, quite simply, as the Strippers' Hall of Fame.
Come right on in, folks.
They are all here, the alluring faces and poses of those exotic beauties who teased and tantalized audiences for generations in the flesh pots of America.
And then there's the great Tempest Storm.
The producer of this paean to the girls who once took it off, but not all the way off, is 66-year-old Dixie Evans, an ex-stripper who gained fame in the 1950s as the Marilyn Monroe of burlesque.
And that one's me.
In a folksy show-and-tell tour for visitors, Dixie always rekindles the Monroe persona.
And I used to walk and talk on the stage, and if you couldn't see the real Marilyn, well, you could come to the theater, and maybe I might even show you a little bit more than Marilyn. No.
Dixie's mission is largely to ensure that the glamour stars of her old profession are not pigeonholed in the archives of entertainment.
There's a whole group of people out there in their 20s and 30s and 40s that have never heard of Sally Rand, never heard of Gypsy Rose Lee. And we aren't really written up in the history books, but the young ones are finding out about us, and we'll be in the history books. It was a glamorous era.
Much of the memorabilia scattered throughout the small bungalow was collected by former dancer Jenny Lee, the Bassoon Girl, who Dixie looked after for several years before cancer claimed her friend's life.
And this, of course, is the great Lily St. Cyr.
In the opinion of most ex-dancers, the best ever to grace a stage or make a sailor squirm was Lily St. Cyr.
I think she's everything that every girl would want to be. Her numbers were production numbers, huge production. Bubble bath on stage. Her props are gorgeous. I didn't even realize how beautiful they were until I have movies, but great acts. I was sort of called to do that.
I asked the woman who grew up as Mary Lee an analysis of why she ended up disrobing for a living.
You really want to be an entertainer, and you don't have the talent. Maybe you haven't had the advantage of having lessons to sing or dance. The way to get in without a lot of talent and anything, you just think, well, I'm going to start at the bottom and I'll work my way up.
Her decision in 1952 to impersonate the inimitable Marilyn Monroe, who incidentally would have been 66 had she lived, took Dixie from obscurity to stardom.
I was not that talented, and I wasn't that pretty, and I wasn't that good looking. Then I just
walked on stage, and I said, well, it wasn't that easy to become a movie star. Of course not. I had to walk and knock on every agent's door till I thought I would drop.
Not too long ago.
Regrettably, she says, stripper routines and body shows began their decline with the arrival of television and the sexual freedom spawned in the 60s, and she misses them.
You got to see some comedy, you got to see laughter, you got to see nudity, you got to see gaiety, you got to see a show. In fact, a very famous writer wrote and said, a Broadway show is nothing but a burlesque show with a college education.
This grandmother 5 times over would do it all again if she could.
Yes, I would. I'd probably lay off the booze a little more. That I would do.
Today, she spends most of her time caring for a small ranch and promoting the Strippers' Hall of Fame. Donations are all that keeps it running, and even from that meager budget, she donates 10% of the take to a local home for battered children. Dixie Evans, an aging star who insists the show must go on.